thought I'd do a walkthrough of the pond and the airlifts. So forget about flow, forget about other bits and pieces at the moment. Just want to take you through a little bit around force. So force is essentially how you're pushing. So it gives you your pressure. So an airlift has got a very little amount of force in theory. It's something like comparative. This is only doing something like 0.2 bar or something like that, versus what a water pump could do at 3-meter height. You know, like a 20,000 litre per hour pump will be doing something along the lines of, you know, a lot more than that. So the pump tends to have a lot more force that it can exert. And then the other part is really what the pond and also what the filters are pushing back on that force. So what happens is, if there's a difference between these, you'll get a flow. So that's the flow rate that you'll see. Okay, so it either goes from, you know, for example, from this side being forced through, so the pressure difference there is higher, so it pushes the water out, and that gives you your flow rate. Okay. So if you were to look at this and to look at this, you can see here that if it has a small amount of difference, just like this here, it's about 4 centimeters between here and here, you'll get a smaller pressure difference, but at the same time, if you multiply that by the size of the pipe, you'll get a certain flow rate. Now, if you had a larger difference, like for example, the water level on here was higher, or the water level on there was lower, then you'll get a higher flow rate for the same pressure, for the same pipe diameter, due to the pressure being larger. Okay, so this means that the force on one side is more than the force on the other, and so therefore you get a much faster rate of flow. Okay, so really the pressure difference, which is your head height or your water difference, gives you your flow rate. Okay, so that's a relationship. There's a maths formula here, ignore that for the moment, but what it does is it tells us that if we take our pressure and we take our pipe length and we take our pipe radius, we can work out our flow rate. Okay. Now, just one point here about planning. So I want to show you what steps I've taken in terms of planning. The planning in terms of, the first thing you really want to calculate and work out, really, and this caught me a little bit by surprise, I must admit, but is that when you have an airlift, which is what this line is, you always have a drop at one side and you'll always have an increase in the other. That's basically because what's happening is this airlift is being pulling the water up, and it's then dumping it into this side. So it's applying force this way, and this then, the force here then drops. So at some point this will then equalize. So this is why you get a stable, you know, level difference between the two. But if this wasn't running, this actually would drop down and this would increase slightly. So it would then level out. Okay. So when you design a pond, you need to design that what you're pumping into has got space for the increase of volume, and also you'll note that this will then drop. So this will drop, and yeah, that's not so much you'd have to worry about so much, but things like the sides of the pond, the skimmer, the front window if you have a window, and also things like your chute for waste flow, for example, on your drum, all require this sort of planning. Now you could do it in two ways. You could do from your pond, actually lift into your filters and then drop down into your pond again, or like I have here, I take from the pond, I pull it through the filters as a gravity fed, and then actually as it comes out into here, I then push it back into the pond, which is what this is doing here. So there is some points around this, which is the gravity fed behavior still exists. So your filter restrictions and your pipework restrictions will reduce your flow rate. So you have to consider those when you're thinking about the design, and also that that will provide more back pressure and less flow rate, as we just talked about. So I really took this in 3 steps. Plan the flow rate for your pond, do the design of the airlifts, and do the air pump. On the next video, I'm just going to take you through those steps.